Welcome back to For the Love of Men. We are your hosts. My name is Brianna Mosier, and I am sitting here with my co-host, Courtney Shand. And the intention of this show is to bring together men and women in harmony and help them honor each other's masculine and feminine energetic cores. And we are stoked to talk to you about not losing yourself in a relationship today. We've got the tea for you. However, Courtney, before we jump in,
before we spill all of it.
Before I spill this tea, tell us who you are and your magic in the world for any new listeners that we might have.
Yeah. My name's Courtney Shand, and I am a relationship mentor. I help men and women really activate and empower their masculine energy so that they feel calm, grounded, and stable as they're finding their person. So important to have that kind of sense of having your own back so that you can show up, like we're going to talk about in this episode today, not losing yourself. You can show up as the authentic, full version of yourself and therefore attract the right person for you.
Yeah, and your perspective, bless me. You're not editing that, staying candid. Your perspective.
We sneeze.
Oh my gosh, speaking of humans, where's your crown?
I think I left it at home.
What? The queen has... It's fine.
It's because I have one innately, remember?
It's true.
I've upgraded. I've integrated my crown.
The crown is now automatic. Oh my goodness.
I thought I brought it, but it's not in my bag, so.
That's all right. We do have tequila, which is a good substitute.
The liquid crown.
No, it's a liquid crown. We're not serious. Or are we? We're not serious.
I did make some pretty stout margaritas, I'm not gonna lie. I don't measure when I cook anything, so.
Courtney's an excellent cook. We could add this to your bio.
Thank you.
Excellent. Every time I leave Courtney's house, I leave with a baked good. And I like it. I get excited about it. Sometimes she's like, I pulled these cookies out of the freezer for you that you like so much. I brag about them to everyone.
It's because I freeze everything. True. That's true. So that I have it when I need it, when I want it. So, okay. Derailed. Bree, who are you and what do you do? Tell me about your crown out in the world. What does it look like?
Well, first of all, I feel like it's relevant that the people know that you're a great baker.
Thank you.
Too. That's part of the Courtney Shand bio.
Yes.
My work in the world. I like to say feminine energy, pleasure, activation. That's kind of what I do.
Oh, that's
right?
New. That's new.
Interesting way to say it. I've been playing around
with
with how do I describe what I do in the world. But my work is really helping women who are entrepreneurs, typically, who might present as quite masculine, but feel that feminine is their core. And they're wanting to not only scale their business through feminine energy and pleasure, but also attract in a healthy masculine partner. So that's kind of the magic I do in this world with a multitude of ways.
Yeah. So important.
It's so good. And together, Courtney and I have great synergy. So I'm excited for you guys to listen.
When our powers unite.
When our crowns become one giant crown.
Also funny because I always use the Captain Planet. When our powers unite or combine. Mm-hmm. Captain Planet. And Bree was like, what is that?
It reminds me of, I recently went to the movies and watched The Eternals. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
I think it's a Marvel movie. Don't come for me if I'm wrong. Okay, it's a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's a Marvel movie. I knew that. And at the end, spoiler alert, everyone. Oh. Okay, at the end, they all unite their powers together to defeat the big thing that comes out of the water, which I don't know the name of. But that's like us with our crowns.
I know.
We defeat the things that come out of the water with our crowns.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, anyway.
The deep abyss. We navigate the deep abyss with our crown.
We navigate the deep abyss. Squirrel brain, back to center.
Yeah.
How to not lose yourself in a relationship. Courtney, start us off here.
Oh my gosh. So we were just putting our heads together before the show, and we were kind of deciding, like, in your experience, my experience, when have you lost yourself and what did you do about it?
Yeah.
And that's so important, I think, to have a intentional dialogue with yourself. Mm-hmm. I think that's step one. To look backwards and see when did I lose myself? When did I start to notice that I was no longer feeling true to me? And what was that presenting like?
Yeah.
Because then you can kind of reverse engineer it of where are the boundaries needing to be set on the front end next time you enter a new connection. Because it's so tempting, and especially as feminine energy women, we prize connection and we will do just about anything for it, even to our own detriment. And without knowing that and without normalizing that, like that is so common. It's in our biology, like DNA structure.
Yeah.
We're like kind of designed to function in a tribe. That's how we operate in that mindset. So like there's no shame on you if that's what you find yourself doing. And to prevent it, you do have to have some boundaries, which is kind of what we talked about at first. Tell me anything you want to add to that. That's, I know, kind of a very broad term.
Yeah. I think it's good to look at too, how does it present when you lose yourself? Like, what does that look like for you in your experience? I think that's a brilliant way to start it. And how do you feel when you're losing yourself? And like, at what point do you wake up and go, oh gosh, I don't feel like myself? Do you notice it at all? I know for me, my experience in relationship where I would lose myself was many, many, many months in when I would realize, oh, I'm not the same person that I was before I started dating this person. And that's actually an internal like yellow to red flag. Yeah.
Bright orange.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So what does it look like, right? What does it
Yeah.
look like for you personally as you're listening when you lose yourself?
Yeah. There's so much, this is so interesting to talk about because I think there's so much content out there for people who have lost themselves to really empathize with that. And there's also a lot of content about not losing yourself, which to me creates a lot of shame around like, this is a really bad thing. And I really think that it's so normal that the only thing we can do is to expect it. Because when we expect it, we can start to plant those milestones for ourselves. Like, if I get to this point, I know this is where I have to make a left turn, like to get back on course.
Yeah.
And that's unique to everyone. And I think that's worth noticing, that like it is so unique to you and you're the only one that can navigate that.
Yeah, you're the only one that feels it. Unless people around you notice and say to you, hey, I'm noticing XYZ is shifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, what it would look like in a relationship if I was losing myself would be, like Courtney and I were joking about some of these things before the show, pretending to like things that I don't really like for a sense of connection and trying to unite with that person and have common ground. But I would almost take it too far. So like a great example Courtney and I talk about all the time is sports. We make sports jokes on the show because neither of us are sporty and we're both dating really awesome men who are sporty. And they wouldn't say I'm sporty probably even. They would be like, I like sports. They wouldn't even say that. What would they say? I don't even know. But Courtney and I just say yay sports. Okay? Yeah. We're not into it personally.
In the tone of yay sports.
Yay. Go team.
Go sports.
What team do you like, baby? Good. Go that team. So yeah, we kind of make fun of it. But if I was losing myself in a relationship, let's say when I first connected with this man, I might be like, oh, I grew up in a sports household, which is true. I can get into this. Like, I can speak your language. Great. I'll go to the games with you. I'll do all the things. And not from a sense of like honoring what that person wants, but it would be really me pretending and trying to force myself to get into it. I think there's a big difference between this person appreciates sports, and so I'm going to stretch and listen and learn connecting with them versus I'm now pretending to like something that I just innately have no draw to keep a connection with them.
I am the connection. Like,
yeah.
I'm having to step into the middle ground because there's not actually a draw there for me. Such a good a good indicator. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the opposite being pretending to not like certain things or not be into certain things because I thought it would be too much or not accepted. So what I was saying to Courtney before the show is a lot of my work with my clients and in life is around working with spirit and psychic mediumship. It's just part of what I do in the world. And part of what I was put here to do. And if I started dating somebody and pretended to not be into it, or hid all my oracle cards and crystals, or didn't talk about it, that would be me losing myself, because that's a huge part of who I am. And so that was my old pattern prior, because I felt so like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I don't feel that way anymore. But there is a period of kind of testing, like, will this person be receptive to this, whilst owning it, knowing that if this person isn't receptive to it, it doesn't mean that this part of my life doesn't have to exist anymore. And the wounded pattern is, they don't like it, let me squash it. The empowered pattern is, they don't like it, it doesn't have to be for them. Maybe it's not something that I have to talk about and emphasize all the time in the relationship, but you still get to have space for it and talk about it. Same way that you listen to them talk about sports.
Yeah, they don't have to change that about themselves,
Right.
to be in relationship with you, and
Right.
you're not going to be their go-to sports person.
Right. You don't, yeah, and then I could go on and on about this, but a partner doesn't have to fill all of your needs. You get to have a multitude of communities around you that feed all these interests and sides of you.
Yeah. Ooh. And I love what you said of like testing to see if they're a safe person. Just as like general health, like mental well-being, like test people and see if they respond safely for you. If your nervous system gets to open up around them, awesome. And if not, okay, well, that's not a conversation I'm going to have with you, but I'm going to have it with so-and-so because they are a safe person for me. Yeah.
And I found too that with EMs, empowered masculine men, generally, even if they're not into it, they're still very safe and will find a way to relate to you and listen and hold space. Has that been your experience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few things that I used to interpret as them not being welcoming to it, but it's like my dad's a great example. There was a course that I took that I was like, man, this was really insightful for me, learning about like, you know, what's healthy and what's not. And he's much more conservative, and I appreciate a lot of the things that I've learned from him. And all he had to say was, I'm not at that point. I forget how he worded it. Something like, I'm just not at that point yet, or that's not what resonates with me, or something, where it was still very much like neutral. It wasn't like, you're wrong, this is stupid, I'm not into this. It was like, this is where I'm at, and this doesn't resonate with my values. Cool. Thanks for letting me know.
Right.
Boundary.
Right.
Like, I can actually see you because of your boundaries, and I think that's actually really a good mindset shift for women, and men too, probably men as well, that like, we can't actually see people who don't have boundaries.
You said, I can actually see you because of your boundaries.
Yeah.
In other words, you're being authentic to who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're actually letting people see you.
That's
and
intimacy.
being vulnerable. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. Tea. There it is.
On the floor. Spill.
Yeah, and I remember feeling a lot of respect for that, because I was like, you know what? I don't feel attacked, which is a huge wounded masculine red flag. I don't feel attacked for this disagreement, and I very much see what's going to be common ground, and this is not something that I'm going to keep pushing.
Yeah.
And you're not going to keep pushing, and that's fine. We have like a good neutral ground of like, this is not part of the conversation. Not like it doesn't exist, but like, this isn't going to be a camaraderie feeling.
It's so true.
Does that make sense?
Totally.
Because that's, I think, such a nuance of boundaries is like we look for people to agree with us, because as the feminine, we feel safe when people are harmonious with our viewpoints. And men don't. They feel safe either way. They're like, fine, I don't agree with you, and that feels safe to me because I don't want to collapse my boundaries.
Yeah.
And so I think that's worth noting too, that like, women feel safer when men have boundaries.
Yeah.
And women get to feel safe in stating their boundaries, because this is how men see us. How they can see what is safe ground, like, where can we connect, what can we connect on, we still want to connect. That hasn't gone away. We're always looking for connection as the feminine.
Yeah.
And the masculine is also looking for connection, but he's trying to find, like, where's a safe ground where we can both connect and not overly collapse either of our boundaries.
Yeah.
That win-win.
100%.
Does that make sense? I said that. That just came to me.
Yes, I think it makes sense. I think, and it again summarizes, like, because I can see your boundaries, I can see who you really are. And he's going to want to connect with you on an authentic level, not a shapeshifter level.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the energy that I look for internally. If I was going to go in that old wounded pattern, it would be, am I going into a shapeshifter right now and trying to connect with this person on all these ways? And if that's the case, I'm not letting someone really see me. It's actually a way to try to gain love and approval. It's very wounded feminine, right? Because I don't trust that you're going to like me for who I am unless I show up in this way and shapeshift. And that's not real intimacy at all, to go to your point. Yeah. Ooh. I also find that men are very attracted to women who have boundaries and are clear. They want to win with you. Episode 1 and 2.
Go back to episode
1. Men want to win.
Yeah.
Ask any empowered masculine man.
Yeah.
He wants to win.
Yeah.
And so you show him how to win by your boundaries. And when you communicate that, things as simple as, like, you really like flowers, and you verbalize that, Courtney. Courtney loves. And Julian. I do. Courtney loves flowers. He already knows that. I don't need to tell him anything. He's got it locked and loaded.
He does. We talked about it today.
Right. He knows how to win because here's your expectation, boundary, what you appreciate, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so, I think, again, just so good to know, like, that going into, like, discerning what's mine and what's yours, that, like, you don't have to forfeit connection altogether. And this is actually maybe a little bit polarizing as well with boundary conversations, because to know what's mine and what's yours actually allows there to be some space that is safe space, like neutral ground between us. We don't have to agree on everything.
Yeah.
And once we can both agree that we don't have to agree on everything to have any sort of connection, you get to choose what connection level feels safe.
Yeah.
So
say more about you get to choose what connection level feels safe.
Yeah, like what parts of myself I'm willing to reveal to someone that does not agree with that part. Depending on how secure I am in it, that's the degree that I understand to which I get to reveal that part of me. The part that I'm not expecting for there to be, like, this camaraderie, like, yes, I see you and I get it and I love that. If I don't need that, then I get to reveal that, and it's just like a neutral, like, okay, win, lose, or draw. This is me. I still deserve to be seen. Versus the maybe deeper parts that are like, okay, well, that's just not going to be part of this connection. It doesn't mean that that isn't a connection, but that's not going to be a deepening connection. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's going back to the same situation of, like, maybe we don't talk in depth about sports, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to be your bro around sports.
Please have boys.
Not to choose, like, a gendered example, but you know what I mean.
Have your dudes that you
talk about that people with. And I can have my people that I sit in a healing circle with and channel spirit. I don't do that. Yes, I do.
Sing Kumbaya. Like, whatever. Yeah, whatever your thing is. Like, I remember I had a therapist one time that was like, you get in where you fit in, and that's the belonging part is the thing. So yeah, I wasn't expecting to go there with how to not lose yourself, but I think that's so important, actually, because that's how I ended up in that chair, was that I had lost myself completely in a connection that was not going anywhere, and I was madly scratching at the surface to try to get it to go somewhere. So not a proud moment.
Yeah, I feel like I have definitely had the experience of losing myself, especially in the relationship with a narcissist for 2 years. Yeah. So if you guys didn't listen to the episode on masculine, we did an episode on how to discern wounded versus healthy masculine. Highly recommend. Please have all your daughters listen to it. It's so important. Or anyone who dates men. And when my felt experience was in dating a narcissist is the easiest, in my opinion, way to lose yourself, because they come in with so much big energy. And the reason you end up with a narcissist is because you have some wounded feminine, some codependent. And the codependent is the ultimate shapeshifter, the ultimate people pleaser, the ultimate person who waters down and compromises boundaries and doesn't speak their truth and bends everything. I mean, I didn't even know what boundaries were when I was with that person. I remember a good friend of mine, Mel, I love her to death, was like, Brie, you have to decide what your boundaries are in this relationship. And I was like, well, I don't. So like, what does that look like? Like, what's a boundary? It was like a huge, oh my God, I don't even know if I have boundaries. So being with somebody who's really wounded masculine and being at that time really in my wounded feminine, yeah, the need for me was to feel loved and validated and accepted by this person who was really successful and charismatic and had this big energy. And it was so tempting, and I did do it. I did completely lose myself. So I'm reverse engineering this in real time.
Yeah.
I think the red flags for me then should have been not seeing my friends as much. Should have been questioning lifelong friends that I had who were so good to me, and this person was telling me that they weren't. So I lost to those connections. I lost my family. I mean, that was far down, right? Like really far spiral. But when it started, I should have caught it. Why am I not hanging out with these women that I adore? Why am I believing this other person? I'd really been programmed to believe what this person had said. Everything in my life was about making them happy and pleasing them. And the deeper psychological reason is if you don't do those things, there's backlash, there's emotional abuse, psychological abuse, all these things that happen, withdrawal of affection and love and attention. And I know this is an extreme example, but for me, I feel like I was the queen of how to lose yourself in a relationship then. And now it is just the complete opposite. I can't imagine not being the fully expressed version of myself. In fact, if anyone tried to get me to be less expressed or less wild, I would run away from them. Because sometimes it takes that extreme end to go, wow, I don't feel like myself, and this doesn't make me feel good. I don't know who I am anymore. That's kind of where I was when I left that relationship. Like, I don't know at all who I am and what I stand for because I've been blindly following someone else. Anyway, just to bring it to the table to normalize women who've been through it. It doesn't have to be narcissistic abuse, but I would venture to say that most women who've been in abusive relationships, those partners have narcissism in them. That's how you get brainwashed. And that is how you lose yourself. If you try to set a boundary with a narcissist, it's not going to go over well. No. So let that be a marker. If you set a boundary and it doesn't go over well, and they're pushing you and pushing back on it and judging you and whatever it is, criticizing you and guilt tripping you, that's probably a wounded masculine partner.
Oh, yes.
That's when you start to be super aware of that because you can start to lose yourself if you stop setting boundaries out of fear. Yeah.
Wow.
So many things.
Yeah. Because the goal, I think, of a relationship as it deepens is to feel more at home.
Yeah.
Together and in yourself.
More expressed in who you are. Yeah. Like, empowered masculine men celebrate you in your fullness, not water you down.
Yeah. 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 Oof. So good. So all that to say, it might be worth doing a little trip down memory lane, as painful or as fun as that is. And just see when you noticed the detour.
Yeah.
And if you can kind of take a step back of what was presenting in your environment that let you know that you had kind of deviated from your path. Because it is so tempting and so easy to do, to prioritize the connection. And only you can tell whether you're compromising or whether you are, choosing growth for yourself. It'll feel different, I think. For me, it feels different to actively choose to grow and stretch, like you were saying, like I'm going to stretch myself to learn about sports. I don't naturally care about them, but I do care about this person and maybe I can get into this, versus like you were saying of like slowly being eroded away. So yeah, that's a good one. And what I usually do for myself is to write it down. This is why journaling can be really powerful. I have a note card in the front of my journal of the things that I noticed through dating were attractive to me versus the things that were like hard no versus maybes. You know, like there's levels of negotiation or negotiables that I was willing to compromise on. And there are some that I'm like, this is just never going to be okay for me.
Yeah.
My nervous system is never going to be
Totally.
okay with this in the foreseeable future. And that's not a route that I want to take. And it doesn't mean that you're not like, you know, into growth or into being accepting or tolerating of other people. And I think that's where women get really misguided, is the tolerance, to be tolerant and accepting of other people. And that's feminine energy. And it doesn't mean that you have to be around it if it doesn't feel right for you.
And it's such a slippery slope into shapeshifter.
It is such...
We're so good at shapeshifting.
Yeah. That's actually really... that irks me about the feminine energy teaching as I was taught it. Because looking back, I'm like, man, those were times where I needed to listen to that weird feeling in my nervous system. And I didn't, because I was like, oh... I need to practice my feminine
Be
energy.
feminine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get bulldozed. No, that is not what that means.
Yeah.
No, you can be very attractive and very feminine and let him see you. And what's really interesting is when partners of mine have set boundaries for me and I've said, that's interesting. I'm curious about it. It's not a non-negotiable for me. I'm going to lean in. Versus when I'm like, nope, okay, bye. And that just fizzles. And I think it has to be the same in the opposite direction. I don't think women are taught that like when we set a boundary, he gets to decide what the next move is for him. It's going to kind of call up a higher version of him. And he gets to decide, is this something I want to continue with or not?
Yeah. I'm so happy you said that, because it's
This is going to be good.
I'm thinking about, why wouldn't a woman set a boundary? Because scarcity. Because she believes that if she lets this man walk, that there's not another or woman, whoever you date, there's not another man who can meet her standards. And so we shapeshift to try to keep this man. We start losing ourselves in an attempt to keep this other person.
Yep.
When if we truly believed in the abundance of 7 billion people, and we truly believed that the universe was on our side and guiding our aligned person to us, and we knew it was available, we wouldn't hesitate to release somebody that couldn't meet our standards or our boundaries. Right? If your boundary is... What's a boundary that you might have said that's a deal breaker? Can you think of something? If not, I can come up with
I'm like
15.
a hard no on smoking.
Perfect. Like smoking anything. I guess this doesn't really matter.
Tobacco to me is just like
gross.
I cannot.
Yeah. So
dipping, smoking, I can't.
Yeah. So your boundary is like hard no. So if a man smokes in front of you and you say, I really like you and I love getting to know you, and it's just that smoking is a hard boundary for me. Courtney would be saying that from queen mode, going, I'm going to set this boundary. I hope that he stays. But I'm totally okay if he doesn't, because I know that my aligned person is out there. And if this isn't him, better is coming. Right? So we shapeshift because we're afraid of losing someone. We go into scarcity. We think we're not lovable. We try to get someone to stay when we put our crown back on. Put that crown on, honey. And then you're like, oh yeah, well, there are 7 billion people.
Yeah.
There's more. And I promise you, the aligned person is out there. But women give up too soon. We think it's not available, and so we compromise, and
so true.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the things that you're willing to flex on and the things that you're not is worth determining.
Yeah. And really considering those, right? Because this is another great thing to gain clarity around not losing yourself. Write those things down, like Courtney said, so that when you're dating somebody, you have this piece of paper in front of you that says, these were hard no's. And now that I'm dating this person, am I making these hard no's maybes when they were hard no's before? Now you're starting to lose yourself in your boundaries. Unless the experience has gave you clarity around, maybe this wasn't that important to me.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much judgment around, like, and I don't know if you experience this, but when I read, like, people that I look up to in the, coaching industry and in the, like, relationship realm, it's almost like it needs to be so black or white, and the reality is when you're in the middle of it, it feels gray.
Yeah, it's true.
And to notice what you have gained clarity on and refined. I think that's the difference. Tell me if that
Totally
resonate. But when you are able to refine, you're able to say like, this is a harder no for me. Or like, okay, maybe it is a maybe for me now because I see this other perspective that I hadn't considered before. Now I'm open to holding two sides, which is a mature thing.
Yeah.
As long as you're not totally giving up what you need in that situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Ooh, I have two really great examples.
Ooh, tell.
And I hope that they spark examples for you.
Okay.
Too.
I'm sure they will.
When I used to have this, you get into law of attraction teaching and you make this list of like, who's the perfect man that I want to attract in?
Yeah.
On that list had always been tall. I'm 5'9". Courtney's 5'9". We are tall queens, okay?
Queens, yeah.
And it is really fun to go out together because of that and wear our heels. Something we do often. It was on my list. Taller than me, like 6'2" or above. I think at one point, I even had my preferences on dating apps set to this. Wow. And then I met a man who was equally my height, and he was amazing. We're not together anymore, but a great EM. Courtney and I have a lot to say about EMs who are still EMs, even though they're not your person.
Oh, yeah.
They can be great men, just not the man for you.
Which is a whole other episode. But we've got a whole trail of people that, like, you go on a date and you're like, wow, you're amazing. And these are things that are non-negotiable for me.
Yeah. Oh.
And to love you, I have to let you go.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That is even better example. Just replaced my original one.
Okay.
So this man's a great EM. He's just not my person. But he was 5'9". And I didn't care. That clarity of that experience, it wasn't like I'm compromising. It was like, turns out I just don't care. But there were other things that we weren't aligned on in the relationship. Like on my list wasn't somebody who is aligned with me spiritually. That wasn't on my list, that somebody had to believe what I believed.
Right.
And then in dating this person, I gained clarity that actually I need someone who believes fundamentally these XYZ things the same way I do.
Yeah.
Because it caused so much tension in our connection that we just didn't see the world the same way. And even though this was a great person who I loved and adored, I realized he wasn't my person because now I've gained clarity around, wait, this is a non-negotiable for me. I need someone that's deeply spiritual and aligns with XYZ beliefs.
Yeah, to clarify.
Right. And not losing myself was saying, I adore you and I have to let you go because this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
But it's not because of your height, because you are still very attractive. That was not the deal breaker. It was actually our values.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Because that's something I had too. I was in college. I had a theory that like, I was, anyways, a little cynical in college. But I was like, men lie about their height by a good 2 inches.
They do.
Like, so I need someone that's at least 6'2", because above 6 foot, they stop caring. Mm-hmm. But to get to 6 feet, it's amazing what...
Yeah.
I feel guilty even saying that. Sorry, guys. But
I feel bad about it too. Because, it doesn't matter. Height just
that was my experience. But that was my theory too. And I was like, you know what? And then I started dating guys that were like...
5'10".
I'm 5'10", period. And I was like, okay. And I found them still wildly attractive.
Yeah.
And that really shifted things for me, where I was like, okay, maybe this isn't as important as I thought it was. Mm-hmm. But when I was in that headspace, it was critical.
It's so true.
So funny to me now.
It's so true.
Like, is this who I want to raise a child with because you're 6'2"? That's important. No, it's not important. Like, when you really think about the things that you really want to create on this, like, planet and in this lifetime, I'm like, does it really matter if you're 6'5"? No, it's probably not that important. So
I used to be the poster child for, I even had this theory of like, short women, you are not allowed to touch men over 6 feet.
Right?
I was adamant about this. Like, leave them for us. But yeah, no, I'm just quite... I even dated a man that's shorter than me, who I was just talking to you about, who was an incredible EM. Yep. Amazing man. And I just felt like, I mean, not my person, but great man. I felt like I could do some Taylor Swift shit. Like, he could be shorter than me and I could wear heels and that could be hot. You ever seen pictures of Taylor Swift with men who are shorter than her?
Yeah.
It looks so good.
Yeah, she's killing it.
I was like, I could play that role.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was so fun to watch you as a friend. Like, such a corrective experience.
It really
to come
was.
from like 6'5" or above, 6'8" or above, like, okay, or 5'8", you know. And so that was really fun for you to really clarify, like,
Yeah, I think he was 5'7".
Oh,
Maybe 5'6".
that's awesome.
And I just didn't care.
And the truth is, when you're attracted, that's the thing that, like, we talk about is, like, energy is energy.
Yeah.
And you can be attracted by someone's charisma, their personality, their, like, how they make you feel. And I think height specifically, it's a feeling for us as women.
Yeah.
And I realized that too. I dated a guy who was probably like 5'8", and that was the first time that I was like, oh, all the things that I thought I needed you to be 6 foot to accomplish didn't matter. I feel safe with you physically. I feel financially safe with you. I feel all these like things that I had previously associated. So all that to say, women, refine. Let yourself refine your needs list.
Yes. It's so important to have discernment around what is refining my needs list, as Courtney said brilliantly, versus where am I compromising and pretending not to want something because I don't think I can have it. Ooh. If I could drop the mic on the floor,
there
I
it is.
would.
We're done. Okay, good night. Bye-bye. Which actually leads us into the negotiation and compromise.
Oh, Courtney wrote the most brilliant post on Facebook. If you're not her Facebook friend, it is Courtney Shand, Schand, Courtney Shand. Go be her friend and read this post about negotiation versus compromise. Courtney, tell us your genius.
So I was having a conversation with my man about a conversation that we had previously in the day. And I was like, okay, I'm just not available to keep going in this path. I'm going to lose myself. Like, that behavior is not going to be conducive for me continuing to grow in the direction that I value. And you need this particular thing from our relationship in that moment. So I need to set a boundary. That's what that tells me. So what I basically wrote, and do read the post because it concisely explains what I'm talking about, but basically the ability for women, where we're taught culturally to compromise, relationships require compromise. That's like something I always grew up hearing, which essentially translates to anyone with some sort of codependent tendencies as, oh, I'll fold my boundaries because I'm assuming you're doing that too. Which really leaves them vulnerable to people who don't do that too.
Yeah.
Compromise only works if both people are making concessions. But when you're the one that's constantly making the concessions, it leads straight to the road of resentment. And as an empowered feminine energy woman, she's not willing to compromise anymore. There's things that are non-negotiables for a reason. And I think that that's so important, and what I was really wanting to get across in that post is, for women, goodness of fit is going to be our currency. And if it's not a good fit, it's just not a good fit. It doesn't reflect anything on you or me. It just isn't a good fit, and I'm not willing to pay for something that doesn't meet my needs. Same thing like, financial currency. We're not going to be paying for something that we didn't agree to pay for. So essentially all that to say, negotiation is basically, this is what I need. Okay, I hear that this is what your need, and my old pattern would have been, okay, I can accommodate that because I'm a really accommodating person, highly conscientious, very agreeable. Those are tendencies of mine which have set me up to be overly complimentary to people who take, and I'm putting a boundary out now, and therefore this is what I need. So it's this kind of like give and take, and how it works is, what do you need from me in order to help me with this? Like, what would you need in exchange? If you were to set a price of a item, what would it be worth to you to give me this item? Like Facebook Marketplace. We do it all the time. Like, there's constant things.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to this?
I just think you are the poster child for being conscientious and also setting boundaries and making it really easy to win.
Thank you.
Right? Like, you are very aware of. So in our friendship, guys, listen to episode 6, female friendships. Courtney's highly conscientious of how things will work for me, and a straight shooter. I don't ever wonder if you're resenting me or people pleasing me, and because of that, I trust you so much. So yeah, I think everyone should really listen to this part on negotiating. She's brilliant. Go on.
Gosh.
That's what I would add.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I just think that there's so many times where, and especially in relationship stuff and in feminine energy, where women misinterpret compromise as them being the one to constantly compromise, or the man being the one to constantly compromise. Like the masculine energy partner isn't always the one to compromise either. And that's what negotiation is, kind of the next level of compromise. Because if either one of you is compromising, and I remember reading this in Marshall Rosenberg's book, Nonviolent Communication, back in when I first started in therapy. This was something that I started reading, and I was like, wow, that's fascinating to think that compromise is actually the detriment to your relationship. Like, that's a polarizing way to say it, but relationships die when you compromise.
Because
that
you're
means
trading
one
authenticity.
of you, one of you is not able to show up fully.
Wow.
But when you negotiate, you're not actually making a concession. You're not giving away part of yourself to be in the connection. You're saying, okay, this is what I would need. What would you need? And coming to a mutual agreement where you both feel good. And at the end of the post, my partner and I came to an agreement of, this is what I would need to feel good about this. Can you give me that? Yeah, that's fine. That's a neutral for me. Like, it would be not an add or a negative for me to give you that. And in which case it's an obvious, okay, fine. Yeah, have it.
Yeah.
Like, when you can get to that point where you both feel glad to do it for the other person, that to me is true, authentic connection space.
So good. So I think what's really important to drive home is you're coming to the table saying, this is what I need. Is it Alison Armstrong who taught us the phrase, if I could have it all my way?
Yeah.
Right? We don't say, like, in a perfect world, XYZ would happen, because there is no perfect world. You say, if I could have it all my way, it would be XYZ. And then he says the same thing. And then you find some ground to meet in the middle. But the point is, Courtney is still speaking her truth around what I would really like in this situation is this. What can you give me? What can you provide out of this? What would feel good to you also? Yeah. And her being so authentic is giving him the permission slip too. Should he feel tempted to water down, he won't, right? Now he has a permission slip to come to the table and say, oh, well, if I could have it all my way, here's what I'd like. Great. Now you have two people being totally authentic, not shape-shifting for each other or assuming each other's wants and needs, negotiating. And it's clean. There's no resentment.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think what's so important is when you get to come to the table authentically, you both get to come to the table creatively too. I think that was the really big kicker that I learned from that, is that both of our creativity was online. When I'm saying this is what I really need and this is what you really need, then I was starting to think, okay, this is someone that I really care about and love. Like, why would I not want to get creative of how to meet that? Then I'm starting to come with, like, alternative plans, and he's coming with alternative plans, so that eventually they do mesh. So it's not this is what I want and this is what you're going to give me. Okay, fine. Like that.
Right.
That's a really extreme example, but it happens in little ways, these kind of like paper cuts throughout the relationship that do chip away at who you are. And as a woman, if you're planning to grow with this person, he doesn't want you to shrink either.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Not if he's an EM.
Not if, as I understand it, masculine energy men want
Your
for
fullness.
their woman to be fully expressed because she's happiest that way.
Totally.
Not because it's some value add for him, but like she gets to be happy. And that's what he ultimately wants. He wants to protect your happiness too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I will say too, I've noticed in negotiation, if you're a highly conscientious person with maybe a background of codependency,
this is going to be difficult for you.
this is difficult. And it doesn't actually get easier. Like, so let's say Courtney is my EM partner and I am the EF, right? I'm the feminine and Courtney's the masculine. And I come to Courtney and I say, if if I could have it all my way, I'm probably nauseous as I'm saying it, right? Because I'm learning to set boundaries. If I could have it all my way, I would really like to be able to see you 3 times a week. And Courtney says, well, I could see you 2 times a week. And my brain's going, that's just not going to work for me. But the temptation to say, okay, that's fine, is so strong. And I could concede, quote unquote, right there. Mm-hmm. Because it's hard enough to say, if I could have it on my way, I'd like X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. And if they can't meet you, it's very tempting to just be like, that's fine, I'll take what I can get. Mm-hmm. The challenge would be to really deeply hold yourself in that moment and have your own internal masculine online and be like, we are going to see this through in our strength and our courage and integrity. We're not going to collapse right now. Yep. We're going to keep going. Actually, I'd really still like to see you 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. 2 times a week, just it doesn't feel good to me. I want more connection with you than that. Mm-hmm. And then see if you can find a solution that actually feels good. It's no use to stop halfway through. Have you had that experience?
Oh yeah, then you've just got both of yourselves riled.
You lose it's easy to lose courage in the middle of the negotiation because we're so conscientious that we'll just be like, I'll suffer. Yeah. Only that's just going to cause resentment for you later on. He doesn't want that. Mm-hmm. It's not going to feel good to him. Yeah. Yeah. Either. You're
not taking anything from him by preventing resentment. Mm-hmm. If anything, you are making an investment in the relationship. Yes. By preventing resentment. And that's actually what Julian said was, that was so hot that you decided not to be resentful. Thank you for sharing. Like, hello.
Julian.
Right. Yeah.
Come on our podcast.
Such an EM move, right? So, like, when you think about it in terms of your long game, sports reference number 1, 2, maybe. When you think about the long game, like, what type of relationship are you wanting to build? Do you want to just stay in connection right now? Do you want to stay in connection 10 years from now? Because the difference of how you show up right now is going to determine the outcome. Yeah. Yeah. So, there was something you said that I wanted to piggyback off of, but I forgot. So
just losing courage during connection.
Yeah.
The negotiation, I mean.
Yeah, and this is where having your own back is so important, and it's probably worth putting some time on the schedule to have this conversation when you have prepared, like, okay, this is what I really want, and I'm going to hold my ground. Yeah. Because the temptation will be really strong.
And so I think it's helpful, too, to play that out in your mind. Like, okay, let's say you compromise and you say, no, I can see you 2 days a week and that's fine. Cool. How long will it take you to not feel okay with that and have to bring this up again? Yep. And if that's an EM, he's going to be like, I thought we went over this. Yep. Like, I thought I made you happy. I thought I satisfied this. And now it's confusing. Mm-hmm. I was going to say that empowered masculine men like to know how to win and they like straight shooters. But I would say, in general, people like straight shooters. Yeah. All people. Yeah. If we want an authentic connection with you, we're not interested in you shape-shifting. We want to see who you really are. I want that even in my friendships. Mm-hmm. It's hard for my nervous system to regulate being around a people pleaser. It's uncomfortable. Yeah. Because I feel like I know you're going to resent me. Yeah. Just tell me what you really want.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because then you feel like you're taking from them, and that doesn't feel good either.
No. The point of negotiation is we're both authentically satisfied. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And to quote Allison, you're not done until you're both excited about it. And I think that's the point at which we got in that conversation where I was like, ooh, I'm excited for this to happen again. Yeah. Not that I want to go down that rabbit hole again. Right. But like, ooh, I want to try this because this actually would feel really good for me. I know what you're needing now, and I can set you up to win so that we can not go down this like wounded, like trigger, counter trigger path again. Yeah. Yeah. And in losing courage midway through, there's something that keeps coming to the tip of my tongue, and I just want to spit it out, and I can't.
I get it. I completely get it.
Well, never mind.
Sorry, it will come back to you. I'm confident.
It will. It always does.
I think this conversation really wraps in perfectly to not losing yourself, because it's in those micro moments of, okay, I'll just say I can see you 2 times a week. Okay, it's not a big deal, that you start losing yourself. Boom, there it is.
There it is. It goes back to what we talked about maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago where we were saying, or you were saying, Like, you actually maybe need to clarify what it is. Because if you're saying, I want to see you 3 times a week, because to me that equals connection. And if you were to actually share with an empowered man, I need to feel more connection. He might hear that and be like, oh, what about this? And you're going to be like, oh, well, that's something I hadn't considered. I can see you twice a week, but it's like super intensive quality time, and that meets that same need. I don't need quantity time, I need quality time. So if you can get more clear on what you're actually needing, sometimes that refinement can be really helpful for him too, because then he's going to get his creative genius going of how to solve that problem, but he's aimed at the wrong problem. Right.
Totally. I'm thinking of love languages. I think it's such a great way to learn how you feel love. If you're not familiar, there's a great book called The 5 Love Languages. You can take a quiz online. It's essentially that there are 5 ways that people give and receive love, which might be different, by the way. You might give love different than you receive love. But
worth clarifying.
Yeah, and knowing your partners and knowing yours. I love this because when I was on Hinge recently, not anymore, but when I was, they had a question that said my love language is, and people would put in their love languages.
Tacos.
That's not
the one I saw most often. I was like, okay.
I'm like, you don't understand the question. There's 5, okay? But, when people know, it's like, great, I know how compatible we are. I know how to meet your love language. So the person I'm currently seeing loves quality time and physical touch. And I am words of affirmation and physical touch. And because we've communicated it, like, it's very clear how to win with him, and it's clear how he wins with me. And then it's not as much about time as it is filling each other's tanks.
Such a good,
Yeah,
because the point of the relationship is to be an overflow of feeling good. Like
an additive.
This is meant to be the icing on the cake, not the, effort mixing the batter all the time.
Right.
So
another Courtney analogy.
I love baking.
Courtney has the best analogies. So many things about Courtney. I feel like I just keep sliding them in. Let me tell you something great about my friend. Anyway.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. So not losing yourself really boils down to, like, knowing what you want, right? Having this list whilst being aware of the difference between refining what you want and compromising what you want. Is really important. Holding yourself with courage in these conversations. And my experience has been the universe does test. My journey of dating is pretty linear as far as the quality of men that I experienced just increased linearly every time I grew. But the temptation to compromise and pretend I didn't want something that I did want in a partner was so big. And there's so much strength and faith that has to be behind this decision of, like, you are a great empowered masculine man, but I just know that you're not my person, and I so deeply want you to find your person, but I'm just not it. Versus compromising and watering down and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of courage and faith in that too. Would you add anything to not losing yourself?
I think that's so important, is to know what you bring to the table too, not in like a flip your hair kind of, this is what I bring to the table, boss babe attitude, but like to really know that you get what you want out of it as well. That's the point. Like, this relationship should be mutually satisfactory. And when you set that as the, kind of like Brie and I talked last week of, like, the point of female friendship is to prevent resentment. This is kind of the goal of our friendship long term, is like, I don't want you to be resentful. Okay, great. If your long term conversations with your potential partner is that you don't want to lose yourself, then, like, those are different conversations that you're going to have proactively. So I think that's really important. And jotting it down. Like, as the feminine, we really are very in the moment, and it's difficult for us to, like, plant a flag and say, okay, when I get to this mile marker, I'm going to make a hard left. That's really, that takes a lot of guts. Because it's going to go against your people pleaser tendencies and, like, the investment that you've made. And sometimes to pull out of the negotiation is the best approach. So.
And knowing who you are too, right? Knowing who you are and what you stand for, what you're interested in, what matters to you, how you want to live your life. It is so important to know those things about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you blend into somebody else and there's no discernment between what's you and what's them.
Yeah.
You know, so what I think also what I would say is what are the things that you're tempted to conceal about who you are because you haven't fully accepted them or haven't celebrated them? And then notice if you're in a relationship with somebody, if you start to hide those things. Like practical example is what I shared with you guys. I used to hide the spiritual psychic mediumship side of me. I don't do that anymore. And because of that, because I've internally on my own, apart from anybody else, celebrated that part of myself, now the men who come into my world are like, that's so fucking cool. Tell me about it. Yeah. Even my friends are like, that's so cool. Even if they're not aligned with it, I want to hear about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It at least feels safe because it's in the open.
Yeah.
Which is so counter to what we think is going to feel safe. To put it in the closet. Like, put it away and hide it. That really just cloaks it with shame.
Yeah, just owning who you are and in your fullness, which is an internal job first, and then you bring it to relationship and people will mirror that. Yeah.
And then you're negotiating for goodness of fit.
100%. We crushed it.
Boom.
Courtney, the people love you.
Yeah.
I always say this to you. The people love you. They want more from you. Tell them where they can find more from Courtney Shand, the queen.
So I do put things on Facebook. That's kind of where my longer content goes, as well as my website. So CourtneyShand.com. All the things that I have going on there. I will say I'm super excited this week to be launching a women's group with my content from Arise, which is intended to help women with creating that goodness of fit conversation with empowered masculine men through healing their own masculine energy so that their heart really gets to radiate forward. And I'm accepting male clients. I have one-on-one spaces through the end of the year for male and female clients. I'm super excited to open up some space for that. So that's what's going on for me. And I'm trying to think anything else. Facebook and my website are probably the best place to find me, but Courtney Shand on Instagram, Courtney_Shand on the Instantgram.
The Instantgram. So good.
Yeah. And you?
And
all
me.
over.
All over the place. Yeah.
In a good way.
In a good way. I know.
You span lots of different genres when it comes to content, which is so cool.
Yeah. I just love creating things. Instantgram is probably the place I am the most. It's at Building Bri, BRI, and I love it over there. And by the way, I have been getting messages from people listening to the show. So thank you guys. We love it when you tell us, hey, I listened to your episode.
Yeah.
Like, we love it.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. It just like lights up our day.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, Instagram's the best place. And I have my own solo show called Manifestation Queen Radio if you are someone who wants to dig deep into manifestation and business and feminine energy and all those things. And as of now, what's the best container to tell you about? I have a mini mastermind coming up in December called the Pleasure Portal, which is all about orgasmic manifestation, learning the link between abundance and pleasure, and going deeper into magnetism by embracing your sensuality and sexuality. So if that's something you want to come into, shoot me a DM. I'll put a link in the show notes as well for a sign-up link. It's going to be really great. Yeah, that's what I've got going on.
Ooh.
And Courtney and I will have a TikTok soon.
Yeah.
We will have a TikTok soon.
Very soon.
And I will let you know the handle when it happens.
When it happens.
Thank you for emphasizing those things.
I'm just here as your hype girl because I don't know anything about how to do the TikTok.
I'm going to spearhead our extensive marketing.
Yeah. I called it the Instantgram 3 episodes ago.
And it just stuck.
And it stuck. Because I was spending time with my family and, you know. What does the mom translate on SNL? That's what it felt like.
All right, you guys, we love you.
If
you love the show, we deeply appreciate if you send it to somebody that you love. If you want to leave a review, that's amazing. But more than anything, if you could send this to one person, your mom, your sister, a man that you want to win. This is probably a better episode for women in your life, but send it to one person or put it on your Instagram story. Any type of share is so greatly appreciated. And if you decide to put us on your Instagram story, tag us both, because we definitely want to DM you and say thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys for listening.
See you next week.
We will see you in the next episode.